So I wanted to welcome you and thank you for joining us today to talk about the 2021-22 research grant sponsored by Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation. I'm joining you. I'm Kara Spence, Acting Director of Programs and Partnerships here at SHRF, and I'm joining you on Treaty 6 land and homeland of the Métis Nation. And SHRF, as a provincial organization, spans all 6 treaty lands and treaty territories throughout the province. Also joining me is Alicia and Lisa from Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation. I'll just let them introduce themselves.
Thanks, Kara. So I'm Alicia Osis. I'm the Executive Assistant to the President and CEO at Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation. And together with Lisa Katormson, she is our Information Systems Manager. We will co-manage the Foundation's granting program and will be your main point of contact here at the Foundation.
And as mentioned, we also have a couple other SHRF representatives joining us online if we have any other questions. So we'll go ahead and proceed. So our agenda today is primarily to go through the details of the research grant that's is now live. So we'll talk about the program and important dates for you to note. Of course, the eligibility is eligible expenses. We'll just go through the guide. The guide's fairly lengthy, so we want to make sure that all the details are understood before you apply. And then we'll have some time at the end for tips and Q&A if you have any questions. If you have questions, just note them in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. So I'll hand it over to Alicia and Lisa to speak about their organization.
Yeah, thanks, Kara. So Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation's mission is to inspire philanthropy by connecting communities to support Jim Pattison Children's Hospital to provide specialized maternal and children's health care throughout the province and pursue the advancement of innovative research. Each year, our foundation provides approximately $400,000 to our provincial health research community to discover, evaluate, and implement new approaches to delivery of care, maintaining health, preventing, and curing disease. Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation is proud to partner with the Saskatchewan Health Research Foundation to deliver the Pattison Children's Research Grant Program. Our partnership with SHRF allows for the development of new and innovative care right here in Saskatchewan. So that brings us more closely to our research vision. And the Foundation's vision is to support Jim Pattison Children's Hospital to transform provincial specialized maternal and children's healthcare, ensuring that it reaches the 4 corners of our province and is designed to meet all the needs of patients equally, regardless of geography, diversity, ethnicity, or socioeconomic background. The Foundation will support world-class maternal and children's research that will improve health outcomes for Saskatchewan mothers, children, and hopefully children around the globe. So a little bit about the program you'll see here on your screen. The Pattison Children's Research Grant Program supports interdisciplinary research projects with the potential to enhance pediatric and maternal health care across many specialties and subspecialties. And as I said, they're all listed here on the screen, so I'll give you a moment to read those through. And then we can move on to a little bit more about the program. So all applications received by the Foundation and SHRF must align with 1 or more priorities in addressing children's and/or maternal health care. So this year, more closely, our research priorities are novel therapeutics, remote access and artificial intelligence, Indigenous health, improvements to provincial quality of care, and improvements to maternal and pediatric care. So just a little information about where you'll be able to find what we'll be going through today is at our website on pattisonchildrens.ca, and you can download the guide that is shown here where you can access it. And yeah, if there aren't any questions, I'll let Kara and your team continue from here.
Great, thanks, Lucia. So I'll just note here on this screen, this is the home site of Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation, where you'll find the guide. And when you press apply today, it will take you to the SHRF website because the application's done through the RMS. So if that is where you're directed, you're in the right place. So let's go ahead and talk about the guide, the application itself. So the program guide, like I said, is fairly lengthy. So we'll just talk about it in sections so we're real clear. So the what this opportunity is about. So the first 4 pages is really important to read through and understand what it is that Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation is looking for in their funded projects. So really try and speak to what it is that they're looking to fund. Application and review processes. This is largely about the RMS and the deadlines that you'll need to meet in order to be eligible to apply. And then the last section is the grant management and policies. So these are the governing policies of SHRF and JPCHF. And so please review those policies so that your budgets, especially, or your work, is within those eligible expenses and activities. There's also a glossary of definitions, and different funders are different, so please refer to their glossary of definitions for how they define applicants, co-applicants, knowledge users, people with lived experiences, etc. And then we'll go on to the application instructions. So the 2 main deadlines that I want you just to note and mark on your calendars and maybe put a big circle around them is the first one is coming up here, November 19th, and this is for mandatory eligibility check. So this is required in order to proceed to step 2, the application. And this is also done in the RMS, and we'll talk about that process in a minute. We'll note these dates and we'll unpack what each of those steps will include. So November 19th at 4:30 Central Standard Time, so our time, is the eligibility, mandatory. And then once you approve or you've been confirmed eligible, you move on to step 2, which is the full application, which is due January 21st, 2022, again at 4:30. So this is an outline of all of the deadlines to keep in mind. So it's now active and live, so you can access the RMS, the application, and begin the process already. Today is the info session. And then note that the funding decisions are, so the deadline is the 21st of January, and the funding decisions are made March 31st. So what happens between January and March 31st is the peer review committee. It's done, this process is done by peer review. And then between March and May, once you are aware that you've been funded, then that's when you'll work through your operational approvals, your ethics, and set up your funds. Now, these are SHRF and Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation deadlines. Please refer to your institutions for internal deadlines in order to ensure that you get your signatures and all the internal requirements. So the grant funding is $50,000 for 1 year, and this is non-renewable. There's enough funding to award 4 teams this year. So this is a competitive process. And those that are eligible to apply, the principal applicant must come from one of our 6 MOU institutions, and they're displayed there. And now these institutions will hold the funds. They are MOU institutions with SHRF, and they do the financial reporting. So as I mentioned, the application process is done through the SHRF RMS. So all the information is submitted electronically. This is a format that many of you are already familiar with. It's standardized and it will look the same as it does for other competitions. So please ensure that you're referring to the specific guidelines to direct your proposal towards what it is that the funder is looking for. So the principal applicant, the NPI, the person that's putting in the application, is responsible to ensure that all the information is uploaded and correct, and the invitations have been accepted by the rest of the team members. The principal applicant is responsible for all financial reporting and end of grant reporting. What else can I tell you? Particularly for knowledge users or people with lived experiences, they'll also be sent an invitation electronically through the RMS. So if they don't have an email or they're having some literacy issues with technology, that's no problem. Just contact us at helpdesk@shrf.ca, and we can help set the person up in the system. And you also have the ability to add a grant writer to support you through the process. There's some contact information, so the help desk at SHRF.ca for any RMS questions, funding info at SHRF.ca for any questions on the competition itself. I'll have contact information at the end of this presentation as well. SHRF also has some resources on their website. There's some how-to videos and user manuals, so lots of resources if you need support. So in order to be eligible for this competition, you need at minimum 3 people on your research team. These 3 people must be based in Saskatchewan and work primarily in Saskatchewan. And these 3 people represent a researcher, a knowledge user who is a healthcare provider, and a person with lived experience. That might be a patient or a patient advocate or a family member. So each team will have a minimum of these 3 people represented, and each person must represent only one of the team roles. So you can't have a researcher who is also a knowledge user. You need 3 distinct people to fulfill these roles. So once you have these 3 people, then that's part of the eligibility process, which we'll get into the details. And then once that is completed and you've passed eligibility, then you can move on to the full project application. So the project roles, this is also defined in the glossary in the guidelines, so take a look. But the roles are either as applicant or investigator, which is a PI, primary applicant or primary investigator, co-PI or co-I. Now the team, the 3 individuals that are the minimum to represent on your team will play one of these 3 roles, either as a co-I, PI, or co-PI. So your knowledge user will be a knowledge user, but as part of the research team will be a co-I. Then there's personnel. These are trainees, research staff, people that are paid from the grant. And then there's supporters. So supporters are people who support or have stake in the work and the findings of the work, and they will also have a contribution form to fill out and include their letter of support. So you're allowed to be on more than one application, but only one application can you be the PI or the primary investigator. There's no limits on the other on the amount of co-applicants that you can serve on other applications, but only one per person as the PI. Allowable expenses, so direct costs of research only, so no overhead or indirect costs. The research activities must be within Saskatchewan. And the budget section has 2 tables. One table will be the ask for the grant, up to $50,000. And the other table will have the contributions, cash in kind, that you may have from other partners or stakeholders. The expenses are designed to cover just what you need to complete the project and are not available from other sources. So you'll want the reviewers to clearly see how your budget is meeting the objectives of the grant, and that without the funding, the project would not move forward. And then also just be aware of the rates that are set by your own institutions for honorariums, travel expenses, and the like. Updated categories. So the personnel would include salaries and benefits. Again, refer to your institutions for what those baseline salaries are. Research costs. So those are the costs that you will require to do the research project. And just note that equipment, that includes computers, that's tangible assets, no more than 10% of the total budget. And then knowledge sharing, knowledge dissemination, knowledge mobilization, these sort of costs. We're looking for both academic and non-academic activities. Academic conferences and academic travel costs for conferences and the like are at a maximum of $3,000. So the process, so step 1 is the eligibility check. So there's in the RMS, There's a section for eligibility. The details of that will be on the next slide, but what will need to happen is you'll need to meet the eligibility requirements, and then you submit that in the RMS. We review them, we screen them, and we make sure that all of the boxes are checked and all of the requirements are met. And then we send the list to anonymized to Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation to review those proposals or those applications that are wanting to move forward to confirm that they fit within their priority areas. Once they're confirmed, these decisions will be made by November 26th for all submissions. And there is an opportunity for revision. So if there's maybe some confusion with the research team, that all 3 team members, the knowledge user, researcher, and persons with lived experience are part of the core research team, or if there's other queries as far as the fit within the program, there is an opportunity for revisions up to December 3rd. And the purpose of this eligibility check, now the information you put in your eligibility check won't go to the peer review committee. This is for internal purposes only. So you can deviate slightly as far as, say your title or your team composition, or maybe even your research questions. However, your eligibility must be maintained. The team requirements must be maintained. So if you move your team around, those 3 key roles must be fulfilled. What else can I tell you about the eligibility? We also use this to confirm eligibility, to confirm that you fit within the priorities, but also to help build the peer review committee. We also will be able to identify if there's been any conflict of interest, or sometimes there's some clarification on your affiliation with your home institution. So that's the purpose of the eligibility, to ensure that you can move forward to full application. Oh, so this is what I was describing, is sort of on the back end of the eligibility. So the principal applicant, the person who will hold the grant, invites the others to the application. So this is done again through the RMS, and the other applicants will accept their invitation in the RMS. Now the 3 must be met, and of course you can add after eligibility. You can add them all in the upfront, but the 3 minimum must be met at this eligibility point. And there's just a few fields to fill in. So you'll identify your priority area that you're applying towards. The fit with the program, you'll have 150 words to describe how your proposal, how your work will fit with the objectives of the funder. 300 words to just briefly overview the proposed research. And then you'll have the opportunity to enter 5 keywords that describe the work that you're doing. We'll ask you to identify 3 suggested reviewers, and these reviewers are within Canada but outside Saskatchewan. And a peer reviewer would be someone who doesn't have a prior relationship with you. So there's no conflict of interest and they have not worked with you before. Now these are suggestions, but SHRF creates the peer review committee on their own. We appreciate your suggestions, but we also have the opportunity to comprise the peer review committee with the assistance of the committee chair. Now, institutional sign-up is not required at eligibility, so you don't need your research unit signature. This is just for internal purposes. Now, once you've passed eligibility, you'll move to full application. So in the full application, this is the package that will go to the peer review committee. So you'll need to update the team members, ensure that those 3 key roles are still represented, and your title will be confirmed at this point. That's what will move forward to the peer review. The plain language summary and scientific summary. There's sex and gender considerations and questions. Ethics, the ethics that you'll be required to receive, geographical locations, and your target audience for your work. The proposal itself is 8 pages. And references and supplementary materials are in addition. You have 1 page allowed as an upload for your timelines. And then as well, you'll identify the roles and responsibilities of the within the proposed project in the contribution form. So the contribution form will name the team member, the role on the team, their contribution, specifically what they're going to do, as well as uploading their CV or letter of support. Their CV or their letter of support. You'll also have an opportunity to upload a budget table, as well as a 2-page maximum budget justification. There's a few questions on impact, and then an upload of the signature page signed off by your research office of your home institution. So the contribution forms, when you invite someone to your application, there will also be a contribution form that this person will need to complete. So ensure that you're selecting the correct affiliation. Many people have multiple affiliations, so ensure that you're selecting the correct affiliation of the person you're inviting to join the project. If you need to reset your password again, you just helpdesk@shrf.ca and we can help you with that. So you'll select what project role you're playing, either researcher, knowledge user, or person with lived experience. Now this is on the research team, so you'll be a co-I or PI, and then the role. So you might be a co-I knowledge user, co-I person with lived experience, researcher, PI. You'll have a specific role to play. So you'll identify it here. How many hours per week you'll work on this project, and then your role in the proposed project. In here, you can identify your expertise and your value added to the project. So here we just unpack, the applicants and investigators, specifically it's the researcher, knowledge user. If you're a researcher, you'll use the validated CV from the CCV website, and you'll select the Pattison Children's Research Grant CV template. Knowledge users will use the SHRF Knowledge User CV template. And person with the lived experience, they are not required to upload a CV. Instead, they will upload a testimonial up to 250 words, or the option to do an audio file. And they'll talk about their experiences in their own life and how their background, your experience will contribute to the research team. Personnel, if you know who you're going to bring onto the project, that is a strength, because it'll indicate that you're fairly far along in your work, and you'll be able to hit the ground running once you're funded. And so the personnel can also be invited at this point to the application if you are aware who you want to bring on. So again, they'll have to ensure that their affiliation in the RMS profile is accurate and is what they're representing on the research team, or how their role is contributing to the team. And then they'll identify on what position they are in, if they're an undergrad, graduate, a research fellow, or personnel staff. Again, how many hours that they'll work on the project, their proposed role of up to 100 words. And an important point here is to describe how working on this project will contribute to their capacity building or their career development. Supporters will, again, assure that the RMS profile is updated and is reflecting the affiliation that they're representing on the team. They'll select the sector that they represent from the drop-down list and upload a letter of support. So once the application has been submitted and is complete and the competition is closed, as I mentioned, this is a competitive process and it is reviewed by peer review. So the peer review is managed and organized, administered by SHRF. The review criteria, however, is developed by Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation. The peer review committee represents a multidisciplinary committee from across Canada, outside Saskatchewan, with expertise in pediatric and maternal health. We look for peer reviewers that can best speak to and understand the applications that they'll be reviewing. 2 primary reviewers will review each application, and they'll provide written comments back to the applicant. And external reviewers will also be used in addition to supplement the peer review committee expertise. They're not formal committee members, but they do provide a written review to the committee for reference. All committee members submit a score, and the final score is they submit a score based on the discussion of the application, and the final score is an average of all the committee members. If any of the committee members are in conflict, they're removed from the discussion. And funding is allocated on a top-down basis, from the top down based on average score at a minimum of 3.5 cutoff. So it must be reached 3.5 in order to be considered for funding. The criteria for adjudication: 30% rests on the project idea, 30% the approach and feasibility, 20% on the development of the team and the impact of the work, and 20% on the expertise, experience, and resources. So that would be the experience of the team, experience and expertise of the team, and the resources that the project will produce. And just refer to page 9 for more detail on this. The rating scale is used pretty unilaterally across the board. So minimum of 3.5 in order to be considered for funding. And they really do use these scales for considering their final scores. So there is a difference between 4.5 and 4.4. There's a difference there to get to the next level of range. So you want to reach for the 4.5 to 4.9 level. The tips for writing. Well, definitely read the application package. That different funders are looking for different things. So tailor your application, write your application to respond to the funder. Their mandate, their vision, the priorities for the call are within the application package. You want to grab the reviewer's interest. So you want to, not only describe the importance and the pressing relevance of your work, but also the interest. Have the reviewers at the end of it feel like they want to they want to see this work funded, that it's important work that must be funded. So you make a strong case. Now, the detail the how. Sometimes we describe the importance of the work, but we brush past the details of how you're going to achieve, to answer your question or achieve the project objectives. So we spend, probably at least half of your proposal describing how you're going to do what you're going to do. And this includes addressing any of the bumps or limitations or pitfalls that you might come across. So reviewers are smart. They'll be able to identify some of the limitations in what you're proposing. So just address them instead of avoiding them or looking past them. Make it easy to read. Someone had asked me if they should use visuals. Pictures paint 1,000 words. So sometimes you can get more information across in a half-page visual than you could in 2 pages of writing. So make it a pleasure to read. Have a really clear progression of ideas. Make sure your budget matches your objectives, but also that all your math computes. So there's no room for interpretation or question marks. You don't want the reviewers to start poking holes or finding limitations or gaps or issues with your work. Field test your application, which is have others read it before you submit. Have others review it and give you their critical evaluation. And when you feel like you've completed the proposal, you feel like it's thorough and you've done the job, go back and read the application package. Sometimes when you get writing and get going on your project idea, you might lose sight of what it is that the funder was looking for. So go back, make sure that you are indeed addressing what the funding is looking to fund, and that all of the criteria have been met and you've checked all the boxes. So here's the contact page. So from SHRF, you can reach out directly to me if you have any questions about your proposal. Any questions about the RMS, please contact Tanya. She works on the back end, and she can also help your people with lived experience if they need to sign on or they need help uploading. The central help desk at CCB, there's the telephone and email there for you. This is out of the CAHR. And representing the funder is Alicia and Lisa as well. Contact them if you're curious about the funder mandate or priorities, or what project ideas might fit within this funding opportunity. So we'll move on to questions. I see that I've got one in the chat here. Oh, do cash and in-kind contributions, are they mandatory? Alicia, I don't believe that they're mandatory, your cash or in-kind. Do you require?
I don't think it is mandatory. I agree. I just think, yeah, we really just look for the research priority, what it's about, and just making sure that that fits in with our values and vision and mission. And yeah, but if there's more further information required, we can look into it and let everybody know.
So if you've got any matching or in-kind, that always strengthens your application. If you're able to demonstrate that your partners or other stakeholders are invested in your work, either through cash or in-kind, that always strengthens not only the application, but sort of feasibility of the team and of the project. So if you have it, if you can get it, then I suggest to add it. Yes, this presentation will be available in recording format. And I'll just stop sharing here and just check on the chat here. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Louise. Just wait for a few more questions. Feel free to pop them in the chat or in the Q&A. Yeah, you're welcome. So again, this will be available on the website after for reference, and then you can always just reach out to us with any direct questions. I don't see any more questions coming through. You know, the most important thing is to read the guidelines, get really clear what it is that Jim Pattison Children's Hospital is looking to fund, and the process itself, you know, it's administered by SHRF through the RMS, so there won't be any surprises there if you've had the opportunity to apply before. Now, before we close this session, do you have anything more you want to add, Alicia or Lisa?
Covered everything off, but as you mentioned, please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us. If you have any questions, we can definitely help and have a conversation if needed, and just to make sure that yeah, the applications coming in are what we're looking for.
Yeah, use the resources that you have. We're here to help to support the highest level quality applications, and we really want to support you to be funded. As I mentioned, these are peer reviewed, so you know, we don't make these decisions. We're just here to support you to create strong applications. Okay. Well, that looks like that might be a wrap. So I thank everyone for joining us today. And I think the weather is going to turn in the next couple of days, and we might get a few more beautiful fall days that Saskatchewan is so known for. So if there's nothing further, I will bid you farewell and thank you very much. And I hope that you're able to meet the deadlines and put forward your applications for project ideas. Thanks so much.